Welcome to Disrupt the Drift, you all. I am Baron Baptiste, and this is a place where we can tell the truth and the truth can be told. Today, we are going to talk about spotting the red flags in people, spotting the red flags in relationships. How many of us in our lives have either been duped or we've gotten into something that we thought was a great idea, a relationship, whether a work relationship, a personal relationship, a friendship. And we get to a point in hindsight, things go awry. We look back and we're like, you know what? All the red flags were there, but I chose not to see them. Just kept stepping over them, glossing over them. It certainly happened to me many times. And I've come to see I could say it's a skill. You develop it's a key skill to have in life, to be able to read people and get present to where people are coming from. It's always about where people are coming from. And it's about where are you coming from? Maybe you want something too badly that you think that person can offer you. And then you see what's right. All is everything that seems right. And you don't see what could be wrong. And then it comes back to bite you later. David, what's your take on this? Spotting the red flags.
Oh, man.
In people.
I wish I had $10 for every red flag that I ignored. I'd be so rich. I'd be rich.
You would be a wealthy man, huh?
Yeah.
Same. I'm right there with you.
James Russell Lowell said this: one thorn of experience is worth a whole wilderness of warning. I guess it goes back to this idea that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so if you are reflective and if you're a person who is prone toward learning from experience, then sometimes you only have to experience something one time, but then there are those blind spots. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said this: in spite of warnings, change rarely occurs until the status quo becomes more painful than change. People seem to see that people seem not to see that their opinion of the world is also a confession of their character. So what are we missing right here? What blinders do we have on? What blinders do we put over our own eyes when we don't want to see the obvious? And the obvious is obvious, right? Even the founders of the Constitution said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. If truth is anything, shouldn't it be self-evident? And then the question is, are we looking for the truth, whatever it may be, or are we looking to ignore what's there in terms of truth?
Yeah, I think a couple of things come to mind. It's being present. It's being present and being present in a way that you're really being with people. So it's not about I'm not getting like here. We're not talking about, techniques here. It's not about, I learned this a long time ago. You don't have to figure people out. You don't have to, no, but if you're really present and you be present, you get the whole world of a person and pretty quick. You read their energy, you can see, is what they're saying matching up with just who they are? Is what they're saying matching up with who they're being, so to speak? Early on, I was pretty young. I don't know. I was in my early 20s. I had just moved to LA. I was living in the mid-Wilshire by the La Brea tar pits there, studio apartment. And this guy comes up, walking up with a briefcase, pretty well dressed. He had a nice, what are those, Argyle sweaters, and he had a collared shirt. He had glasses. He looked like a kind of intelligent guy. And he comes up, he's very friendly. And he says to me, is it possible to borrow $20 from you? I ran out of gas. I just need to get gas. Once I get gas, I can go to the bank and I'll just return your money. I'll be back within an hour or so. And he said, I think he said something like he was a professor at UCLA. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he totally believable. I had no reason to, I'm like, sure, here, it's $20. And I didn't have any money then. I was waiting tables at some health food restaurant in Brentwood, and I didn't have much money. So that $20 meant a lot to me, but I was bought into the guy. And so I give him the $20. Okay, an hour goes by, a couple hours. Pretty soon, it's end of the day, into the evening. And I'm like, okay, I got burned. The next day, I still gave him, maybe the guy will show up tomorrow. Nothing. A few days go by and I was clear. Oh, I got duped. But on the surface, this guy, I had no reason to really doubt him. He seemed trustworthy. He was charming. He seemed intelligent. His story seemed believable. But when I stepped back after I got duped, I'm like, there was something about him that didn't quite smell right. There was something, he was saying all the right things. He had the right kind of charm. But really there was something there not quite right. I got present to that. But I got duped into his story and his overall presentation, right? Interesting, about a week later, I show up to my job in Brentwood on the other side of LA. Brentwood's on the west side. I was living in the east side. Show up to my job and I walk up toward the front entrance of the restaurant. And there's the guy. There's the guy. He's holding the same briefcase. I think he was dressed in the same clothes. And I dart right up to him. And I said, remember me? And I said, I want my money. I said, you totally duped me. And he goes, I don't know you. What are you talking about? I've never seen you before. He went into this whole thing. He'd never met me, never saw me before. I was like 22 or so. I grabbed his briefcase out of his hand and I said, bring me my $20. I'll be in this restaurant. When you bring me my money, you'll get this back. And I walked off. It was very interesting. He showed up probably an hour later with my money. I gave him his briefcase. I remember that lesson. I was like, there's something I doubted in myself and something I believed in myself that believed in him. And I was like, I've got to trust. I need to doubt that part of myself that buys into just someone's story or presentation. And I've got to trust and believe in that part of myself that says, something's off here. There's a red flag here. Don't just step over that. Get present. Like that. But yeah, what do you see?
I have a similar story, except for when I was in my teens, I had only a couple friends. And those were people that I would go surfing with all the time. And I got grounded. So I wasn't allowed to go anywhere, do anything, go surfing especially. And I tried to abide by that. But my friend, one of my friends who I found out recently had passed away, about, I think he was a year younger than me, came over one day. He says, man, my surfboard's broken. Can I borrow yours? The waves are amazing. And I said, okay, just take care of it. So I decided to ride my bike up to the surf spot, which was where the fairgrounds are in Ventura. That's probably about maybe a 4-mile bike ride. So I get there and he comes out of the water and hands me my surfboard. He goes, here you go. I go, wait a minute. You got to take it home. You got to take it back to my house because I loaned it to you and I am on my bike and it's not easy to ride with a bike and a surfboard that far. Too bad, buddy. See, that was the last time I ever trusted that guy. I trusted him up to the point where he proved to me that I couldn't trust him. And so it's not necessarily a sign of weakness that you have a good nature toward people. It's like you are willing to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, totally.
And I knew this guy for years. We used to go surfing all the time. But this day, he just didn't care. He's here's your board. Take it home. Said, no, you need to take it home. Anyway, my point is that we have to, otherwise you become jaded. You have to give people the opportunity to fail you.
Yeah.
Some people you could say, no, I'm not this guy. No, I don't trust him as far as I could throw him. There are all these various signs that tell you whether or not you can even begin to step over that little line of trust and say, okay, I'm going to take a chance on this person. And I've done it many times, but I'm much more cautious. And then your intuition comes into play. And so do you trust your intuition? Do you listen to your instincts about people? And are those instincts biased are they tainted instincts that from being hurt before?
Yeah.
Because everybody's been hurt.
Yeah, your filters are colored.
Yes.
Because you've been burned, you've been betrayed, and then now that's the lens through which you can relate to people.
Yep.
And then you don't really see the whole picture again. You're not present. You're in some reaction to things that have happened in the past. Now you're closed off.
Mm-hmm.
You got walls up, but it limits your life. It limits what's possible, and it limits your availability to be available for relationships that really could serve you and be a part of your life in a way that's uplifting and elevating.
Let me make a point about that.
Yeah.
Because life is a chess game, and the players are constantly moving across the chessboard. Okay? And
and the players typically, and people are like always, what's in it for me?
Right.
Does this work for me? So it's people are navigating this chessboard based on what they see is good for them or not good for them. And that isn't necessarily a negative thing, but how colored are your lenses through which,
we are all players on this board.
Yeah.
And I love what Ronald Reagan said. He said, trust but verify. In other words, how do you know how far you can go in allowing a person to encroach into your world? Because see, we all have a world that you have an internal world just like everybody else does. Your internal world is based upon your values and your life experience and your sense of conscience. And there's just like this amazing kaleidoscope of qualities that every human being has. Some people have more of those qualities than others. Some people are just simply totally selfish, and they look at everything through a lens of how is it going to affect me? And that's what we have a tendency to call narcissism, which is everything is about them. And so people are just pawns in that game of chess. But at the same time, you cannot allow yourself to be the effect of the player on the board, because when you allow that to happen, you can easily be intimidated. You can be impressed by people who really are not impressive, only on the surface, but deep down inside, there's nothing there. So
you're just gullible. Yeah.
Or you're just gullible, and it's because you want to believe that you can trust
you're
everybody.
You're a people pleaser. Yeah.
There's a lot of Christians that just leave their doors unlocked because they think if God meant it to be, if God meant somebody to come in and take my life, that's God's will. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that at all.
Doesn't it also say in the Bible, don't put God to foolish tests, right?
That's true. Absolutely. Yeah.
The experience I had in my business. So as I started my business, it's going back like 20 years or so, but when I started getting some success and some notoriety and celebrity in my niche, suddenly all these people were coming out of the woodwork that wanted to work with me. And I made a lot of bad decisions on working with people, because people make big promises. They say they can do a lot of things. But here's my point. They're not necessarily coming from a bad place, not coming from a malevolent place, but they have all this enthusiasm and they want to work with you and they see opportunity and okay, it sounds great. But I also had to learn that it could be that they don't have a bad agenda. They don't have some hidden agenda, because there's that category, right? But are they compatible? Do they fit in where you're wanting to go and what you're wanting to do? Because again, there are red flags there. It's not that the person is necessarily, again, malevolent or coming from a bad place, but they just don't fit the place you're at or where you want to go.
Which, by the way,
but the red flags are there.
But by the way, that's a blessing. That's a blessing when people don't fit with you and you can tell right away.
Yeah.
Because now we got to go into this other murky area, which is the shapeshifters and chameleons.
Oh, the chameleons.
Always
and the yes
find
people.
a way to change their colors to suit you.
Yeah. So, again, being present.
Yeah.
And seeing where's someone coming from, because the chameleons is the chameleon, whatever complex, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And some people operate very skillfully in that way,
Mm-hmm.
that they just put on this color and this skin that seems like everything seems like they're a perfect fit. But again, if you have blinders on and you're too eager to you want something too badly.
That's the key right there.
Right. That's
and you want to believe something too bad.
And they'll say all the right things and do all the right things to win your trust or approval or, but that's where you've got to really be present, trust your intuition, and look at things on a very practical level, just compatibility. And do they really fit? And can they really do and deliver on what they say they can do or deliver on?
I'll tell you the sad part of all that.
And it's always better to date first than get married.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm speaking in business specifically, but personal relationships too.
Yep.
Like just get to know someone. And over time, you get to see what they're made of, especially through difficult times.
See, the thing is, though, is that there are people themselves that do not know how much of a chameleon they are.
Oh, those people typically don't know.
Right?
They're not present to that in themselves.
Yeah.
They're not aware they're doing. It's just what they do.
Yeah. And it's a survival mechanism. So what they do is they will conform and fit and change colors until one day something happens, and then they become awkwardly aware that they aren't the person they themselves are representing. Something changes and they don't feel comfortable in their own skin, and then they move in another direction. And sometimes it takes,
or you see some
decades.
ugly reaction or some dark side, some angry side.
And then there's the part of us that doesn't want to see it.
Exactly. And then you act surprised.
Right.
But it was always there.
Right.
It was always there.
Yeah.
But part of it is those people are so believable because they so believe it themselves.
Well,
right?
They
do. And it's such a confidence. So it's easy to buy into that or get seduced into that.
Yeah.
But then suddenly you see this other. That's where if you're dating before you get married and you see this other side come up, don't just step over that. Don't just gloss over that. Pay attention to the flags and address them right then and there, because the more flags you ignore, the bigger the mess you'll find yourself in.
I got to tell you, my little boy one time said to me, there's one finger pointing at me and 3 fingers pointing back at you.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
If you want to look for red flags, forget what's in front of you and go look in the mirror and see if you can see the red flags about you. Are you a hopeless believer? Are you somebody that just believes what you want to believe in spite? That's what I keep talking about, confirmation bias. Are you always looking to validate whatever it is that you think you really want to believe? And I'll tell you, this is the other syndrome. It's the outside in syndrome. You and I are inside out people. We are who we are from within, and that what's within filters out into the outside world, and we say what we think and we act the way we do, and we are what we are.
Yeah.
But an outside in person is a chameleon, and they themselves don't even see that there's that chameleon quality to them, that they are conformists in the truest sense, even though they may have little rebel qualities about them.
Yeah.
The more a person is a conformist, the more they are a chameleon.
Well, yes. And there's the chameleons, but then there are those that aren't chameleons, but they have such a strong identity and they're fully confident in it. Carry that wherever they go.
Yep.
But it's still a front. And there's something hiding in the background.
Yeah.
There's the chameleons that have different faces for different people and different, like they merge. But then there's the ones that they are who they are on the surface and they're so confident in it. And yet there's still something in the background that doesn't match up to who they present themselves to be. Yeah.
What I will say is that, and this is something that if people grasped what I'm saying, the significance of it, it would change everything, first about themselves and then about their relationships with others. But there's only two kinds of people. There are people who are the effect of a cause, and that's an outside-in person. They're constantly conforming to an external model or pressure or expectations of other people. But when you stop being the effect of an external cause, you then become the cause of external effects. The ball begins to bounce off of you. You're the ball until the ball bounces off of you.
Yeah, it's
and
good.
You become strong within yourself, and you have a sense of yourself that's not dependent upon an outside source.
Because if you're living externally, you're subject to all the external
exactly
forces.
Right. Perfect.
Right.
Perfectly said.
When you're living from center.
Yeah.
Moving, you are an autonomous being that then can see what's coming at you externally, and you can relate to it appropriately and with your eyes wide open. I was talking to a friend a while back who was sharing that all of a sudden on their marriage, they had been in like this 25-year marriage, and all of a sudden one day their husband wanted a divorce, and it was a shock and a surprise and didn't see it coming. And I was listening to this person, and I said, but weren't there signs there? If it reached that point where suddenly you're Pearl Harbored, right? You're just caught totally blindsided. Wasn't there, like, if you look and just backtrack over years, weren't there indications that things weren't working? And she's like, yeah, we weren't. Yeah, there was a disconnect. We weren't talking. We're both working and blah, blah, blah. There's all these things that, so really it comes down to you weren't really present. You weren't really present in that relationship. You weren't really present in what's actually going on in your life. But it's there. The indications are there, and then it reaches a breaking point. But it's, if you're present along the way where things are going awry, but you've basically stepped over those things, and then it gets to this huge Pearl Harbor event.
But Baron, you have correctly pointed out that first you make your habits, and then your habits make you. We have a tendency as human beings to crave patterns and to crave expectations, so that you want to have dinner at a certain time, you want to go to bed at a certain. When people's patterns are disrupted, it creates this cognitive dissonance. They don't know what to do in their pattern, even in small ways, when they don't have little things that they need, the little comfort things and the little food things. And so sadly, the expectation of a continuation of a pattern makes us conform to the idea of the pattern. We believe the pattern. We've accepted the pattern. The pattern is our whole life. We do things a certain way all the time, and we repeat that over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it's sad when we get caught in that syndrome, and everybody is.
Yeah. And the more checked out you are in life, the more you're going to get checked by life.
Man, isn't that true?
And I've hired people, like I hired a CEO person, and it was like, it's going along, and then all of a sudden things hit a breaking point, and I realized, I looked back, and it was like, this person's playing a different game. Like you mentioned, playing chess.
There you go.
Like inside of a business, you have your strategies and you're making moves, and you're all working toward one vision. But then if you have another person in there who's actually playing a different game that's self-fulfilling, and they're building their own whatever business off your business, or they've got some parasitical relationship with your business or you, and they're feeding off you. But they're playing a different, and yet they're still doing a lot of things that look okay on the surface. But when you, and I could see in my case, there were, again, the flags were all there, and I was just stepping over them. I was allowing these red flags to just be there, or moving along. And then all of a sudden it's a rude awakening, because they were playing a different game than the one I was playing. Yes. And if someone's working for you, you need to make sure they're playing the same game. Or if you're working for someone, you want to make sure you're playing the same game. And if the game isn't your game, step out, go somewhere else and find where you belong. All right, let's wrap up here. Any last thought real quick? I'm going to ask everyone, leave comments, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, leave comments. If you're listening on audio, please leave 5-star reviews. David's got his book up here, Super Conscious Mind. David Masters. That looks like a cool cover too.
It is. Thank you.
Cool cover. Where can people get that?
It's on my website at escapeyourmindsprison.com or on Amazon Kindle books.
Yeah.
The idea is that
and
we
check
all
me
have,
out. Yeah. Real quick. Go ahead. Real quick. But we got to wrap. Go ahead.
Conscious mind. We just have to tap into it. And then you start to function at a completely different level.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good. Check me out at baronbaptiste.com. Also, if you want us to respond to questions, send them to disruptingthedrift@baronbaptiste.com. Last thought here is trust your gut, trust your instinct, trust that higher intuition, that inner knowing with people. Be present. You don't need to figure out people. Just be with people and you'll know them and you'll see behind the curtain. Just trust what you get, what you sense. Real quick, there was that story of Richard Ramirez. Remember the serial killer?
Oh, yeah.
And he would go along the coast, the Night Stalker in LA.
Yes.
And there was and he was very convincible, his presentation, very believable. And he would snag these young women and then they'd be dead because they would buy into his story. He'd give them rides or whatever. Yeah. He approached a woman on the beach in LA in Santa Monica one day and he was very convincing. He said, my bicycle's broken. Could you just give me a ride? And the woman said the hairs on the back. She said everything on the surface seemed totally valid. The guy was believable. She said, but the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. And she trusted that. Yeah, listen, trust yourself.
Very profound.
Trust your body.
Your points today were so good.
Good points. All right, man. Have a good one. Until next time, y'all, stay blessed and keep disrupting the drift and aim true. And peace be with you.